In this slideshow, I'm going to introduce the concept of SharePoint and explain what it is and how it works using an analogy. So what is SharePoint? Well, the Microsoft definition of SharePoint is an integrated suite of server capabilities that improves organizational effectiveness. So not a very good definition by all accounts. So rather than consider that, let's consider something else. Let's consider Lego. So what is Lego? Well, Lego is a construction set for making models, and it comes in three forms. So we have Duplo for small children, Lego for slightly older children, and Technic normally for their parents. So if we consider some examples of some Lego models, this is an example of a Duplo model. So I believe here we have a fire station, and you can see it's fairly simple and easy to get to grips with. If we consider the helicopter, for example, up here on the top right, and once we put the chap in the helicopter, we have a finished helicopter. So that's really a two-step process, and then we have our model already made. We consider an example of a regular Lego model. Here we have a ranch, and you can see that now we've got a lot more steps to complete before we have our model assembled. So we have to assemble our house here with a garage, and we have to assemble our vehicle before we can put our vehicle into the garage, and we also have to assemble some of the landscape like these trees here. Now, moving on to a Technic model, which is a more engineering based model, we start to see it becomes a lot more complex. So in this model we'll have things like working steering. You see the tires are slightly turned to the right there because we'll have a working steering mechanism. We may have also suspension and a gearbox. So this model is a lot more complicated than the others. So what has any of this got to do with SharePoint? Well, what it has to do with SharePoint is in terms of compatibility. So with Lego, we've got three different forms of the same product, and because of the way it's designed, it will all fit together. So for example, in this photograph here, we have an example of a regular Lego brick that's been attached to a Duplo block. Similarly, we could also put a Technic block on there if we wanted to, because it's designed to work in that integrated way. And this is much the same as SharePoint. SharePoint being a system of integrated components that can be as simple or as complex as is required by the organization and fits together much the same way as Lego does. So taking the analogy one step further, we have before us a street made of Lego. So we have a shop, two houses, and on the end here we have a tea hut. Now, because this is made out of Lego, things don't have to stay where they are, so we can move them around. So for example, if I wanted to move the lady on the bench here, I can just move that to the front. Perhaps move my house across to the right, like so, and then place my bench back next to the shop. There we go. And also perhaps I'm not keen on having a tea hut in my neighborhood, so I can just remove that. Select on it, click delete. So there we are, there's my street. Now, if we try and do the same in SharePoint, it works in much the same way. And this is an example site for the company Contoso, which is a fictitious Microsoft company which make electronic components. And this is the home page here for one of the sections of the site. So if I now click on Site Actions, Edit Page, the page opens in edit mode, and now I can move things around much the same as I did with my Lego. So I can move this image here perhaps to the bottom of the page just by dragging it, dropping it. That's now at the bottom there. The document library I have here, which contains a list of recently uploaded documents, I can say perhaps I'd like that to be at the top of the page. So once again, I drag and I drop that, and it moves accordingly, exactly like I did with the Lego. And now I can also make changes. So where it says welcome to your site, I could change that to perhaps welcome to this site. Simple as that. I'm not a web designer, and I don't need particular web design skills. I'm just editing like I would in an Office application. So now I click Save and Close, and now those updates and changes are made. Similarly as to how I deleted the tea hut, I could delete this image if I wished, just by clicking on it, clicking delete, and then that becomes the live site. So that is an example of what SharePoint is, how it works, and how it's similar in design to working with Lego.